Okay, so now we're going to just go ahead and talk about the distributions on box and whisker plots and make sure you understand them. So nothing's going to be perfect. Obviously, I don't know how to draw perfect, but hopefully you kind of get the idea of this. So if you see a box and whisker plot that looks like this, where the box is halfway in between the number line and the minimum number is about the same distance that the maximum number is away from the box, then that's called a symmetrical. Well, it's approximately symmetrical. Okay, if you see a box plot like this, where the whisker on the left-hand side basically kind of looks like it has a long tail to the left, that is called skew to the left, or a left tail skew. So if you see one that the longer side or the longer whisker is on the left side, that is skewed to the left. If you see that the longer whisker is on the right side, then that is skewed to the right. Okay? We're now going to talk about histogram charts. They look like bar graphs, but the only difference is that there's no space between the data, because the data always picks up from the last number. So if this is 0 to 4, the next number is going to be 5. Okay, but let's just go ahead and explain this so you can understand this as well. Let's say that you were doing a survey on all the ages of people at a restaurant, and you go ahead and write all the ages. So these are all the ages that you have. Okay, you're going to first take these ages and you're going to go ahead and make a chart out of them. You want to group them. So if you see, you're going to always go to the lowest number. We see that we have a range from 2, and the highest number is, let's see, 28. So 2 and 28. We're going to want to break that up. It doesn't matter how you break it up. The point here is that you want to break it up with the same amount of numbers between each category. So if I chose 0 to 4, that right there is 5 numbers. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5. That's 5 numbers, okay? So I'm going to start off with the next number. That's 5. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 5 numbers. We ended off on 9, so we're going to go ahead and start off with 10. 10 to 14, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 5 numbers. We ended off on 14, so we're going to go ahead and go to 15. And you're going to do that all the way down up until you get to a number that is greater than your largest number that you just identified, which is 28. Okay, so we now have our categories. We put them in groups from 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, and 25 to 29. And now you're going to go through your data, and you're going to identify how many people were aged between 0 and 4. So we're going to go ahead and count. So there is 1, it has to be between 0 and 4. So we got 1, 2, and 3. So my frequency for ages between 0 and 4 is 3. We're going to do the same thing for frequency between ages 5 and 9. So we're going to count any ages between 5 and 9. So it's going to be, and actually let's do this. Let's go ahead and cross this out. So between 0 and 4, we said there was 3 people. So that was 1, 2, and 3. We got our 3 people. 5 to 9, there's 2 people, so let's just make sure there's 7 and 9 is between 5 and 9, so that's 2 people. 10 through 14, we just have 1 person. 15 through 19, we just have 1 person. 20 to 24, 1, 2, 2 people. 25 to through 29, we have 2 people. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We did our frequency chart, and we're now going to go ahead and change that into a histogram. So you're going to go ahead, your frequency is always going to be going from top to bottom. I'm sorry, that's top, that's bottom. And then your data is going to be going, so that's going to be on your y-axis, and your data is going to be on your x-axis, okay? So you're going to go ahead and write your groups on your x-axis, but make sure you keep it the same way you had it here. So we're going to do 0 to 4, and go ahead and put like a little line so you know where you're drawing it. 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29. When you're drawing this, you're going to look over here. So we're now on 0 to 4. We're going to look over here, and we know that our frequency is 3. So you're going to go out to 3 and draw your line. Okay, so that's going to be your line. When you go to the next group, it's 5 through 9. you're not going to leave any space between the prior group. So 5 through 9 is a frequency of 2. So all you're going to do is go to 2, connect it to the bar from before, and go all the way down. Okay? We're going to do the same thing for 10 of 4, 10 of 14. Go to the prior bar, connect it, make sure you're on 1 because the frequency is only 1. And you're going to do that all the way through. Okay? If you have any questions on this, go ahead and ask me or rewatch the video once again. But we're going to move on. All right, distributions for histograms. So for a histogram, basically, if it looks like it's a shape that you can fold in half and it'll be equal, that's called a symmetrical distribution. So we kind of see that the high point is in the middle and we have points to the left and right that kind of look the same. So that's a symmetrical distribution. Over here, once again, if it looks like the tail, if you go like this, it looks like the tail is going to the right, that is a right tail distribution or right skewed. The same thing as we just learned for the box plots. And if it looks like there's a tail going to the left, then that's a left tail distribution or a left skewed. Okay? Let's now look at dot plots. Dot plots are the same thing. So let's say our question was, how many hours do your classmates watch TV a day? You're going to go ahead. The only difference for dot plots is you're not making a group. We're going to do it individually. So if 3 people said they watch TV 1 hour a day, you're going to go ahead and tally 3 people. If 2 people said they watch, if 5 people say they watch 2 hours a day, then there will be 5 tallies. This said that 2 people said they watch 3 hours a day, then that's 2 tallies, and then so on. So what you do is, when you have a dot plot, you're going to go ahead and create your number line. Make sure your number line includes your hours. Every number, includes all the numbers that are in your data. So in this case, it has to have every hour that you're going to be putting in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's what we did here. I just included 0 and 6. That's up to you. You don't have to do that. I just did it. All right. So then we're going to go back to our chart. And we're going to go to 1. We start at 1, so we're going to go to 1 here. The frequency is 3, so we're going to make 3 dots. Over here, the frequency is 5, so we're going to make 5 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over here, the frequency is 2, so we're going to make 2 dots. 1, 2. Now, with these, you kind of want to line up the dots because the whole purpose of this is to see where the data lies out on. So basically, if you looked at this and they asked you, what is the mode of this data, you would just look at the number that has the most dots, because remember, the mode is the number that shows up most often. So in this case, it would be 2. That would be my mode. If they ask you what is the least number, what is the range, you would look at your data and you can see that we have 1 and 5, so my lowest number would be 1, and my highest number would be 5. So to find my range, I would just do 5 minus 1, and I would get 4. So that's how we find out range. Okay, so my mode is the one that has the most dots. And my range can be figured out by doing 5 minus 1, which is my highest number, minus my lowest number. You want to include the numbers that have dots on it. So we would not include 6 because 6 does not have any dots. We would not include 0 because 0 does not have any dots. Only include the numbers that have dots on it. Okay? Just going to put this here. If you want to pause it or look at it, you can go ahead and do that. All right, distributions for dot plots. So distribution, same thing, guys. The distribution is always going to be the same thing. If it kind of looks like, in this instance, the tail is going to the left, meaning the tail's over here, then this is skewed to the left, left tail. This one over here looks like there's a tail over here to the right. So this is skewed to the right, right tail. And this kind of looks like it's symmetrical because the peak is in the middle, and then it's going down on the right and the left. It's not going to be perfect, guys. Symmetrical is not going to be perfect, but if it kind of looks like it, then it's symmetrical. Okay? Last thing we're going to cover when it comes to these dot plots is something called outlier. It's an outlier and clusters and where your peak's at. So an outlier is a number that is just totally off. It's all the way to the end. It's just a random number. And I probably put this one too close. Usually an outlier is like somewhere, just a random number. So it would be somewhere over here. So if they ever asked you what is your outlier, you would say 12. Ignore this. Sorry. So you would say my outlier is 12. Your peak is your mode. So it is where the highest amount of dots are at. So your peak would be 4, because that's where the most dots are lined up on. And if they ever say, is there a cluster? A cluster is basically just a set of numbers that are right next to each other. That kind of just look like they're right next to each other. So these are numbers right next to 0, 1, and 2. So your cluster in this case would be a cluster between 0 and 2, because a cluster includes all the numbers that are right next to each other. Okay? I'm going to go upload this, and now we're going to do some example problems that have to do with what you just learned. So make sure you have these notes, and we're going to go ahead and do the examples.